failing to win the male lead's affection. Near the end, I chose the second male lead, Ethan. Many people tried to sow discord by bringing up my past in front of him, but he just felt sorry for himself for coming into my life too late, which is why I ended up loving the wrong person. He swore that he would never let me go through that again, but after the novelty wore off, he kept a mistress outside. Natalie has been married twice. Honestly, who would want her if she left me? With this as his excuse, Ethan acted with impunity, but what he didn't know was that if I succeeded in conquering him, I could leave him at any time. Chapter 1. On the day of my new book signing event, someone added lemon juice to my water. I'm severely allergic to lemons, so I ended up in the hospital immediately. As soon as he got the news, Ethan rushed over. My editor looked grim and was just about to speak up for me when the actress Hannah, who had been caught red-handed, beat her to it, her eyes welling up with tears. I just felt sorry for Natalie and wanted to help her replenish some vitamins. I didn't expect it to turn out like this. I looked up at her, pale-faced, finding her excuse absurd. The surveillance cameras had caught Hannah's sneaky actions. It was clearly intentional. My editor, Sandra, patted my shoulder, trying to comfort me with her gaze. Ethan was always protective. So with him here, Hannah wouldn't get off easy. Everyone knew that Ethan had once caused a huge uproar for my sake. When I failed in my conquest and divorced the male lead, Ethan made a grand proposal to me right outside the Civil Affairs Bureau and married me despite the pressure from his family. Even though I was a divorcee, anyone who crossed me never had a good ending. But this time, Ethan acted out of character. He looked at Hannah and let out a casual laugh. If it was done with good intentions, there's no need to feel too guilty. Just come over and apologize to your sister Natalie. The unexpected gentleness in his tone left Sandra in disbelief. She ruined Natalie's book signing event and nearly killed her. A simple apology is all it takes? Ethan glanced at her. No real harm was done. We can just hold another signing event. What more do you want? No one ever dared to argue with Ethan's words, but as soon as he said that, the expressions of everyone present changed. Many eyes turned towards me. Ethan also looked down at me, smiling gently. Besides, Natalie isn't the kind of person who holds grudges. I stood there in a daze as the actress happily walked over. Sister Natalie, I'm sorry for ruining your book signing event. She smiled sweetly, but there was a trace of smugness in her tone. I looked at her, feeling a sudden chill in my fingertips. For some reason, I suddenly remembered the rumors from some time ago. Many people were saying that Ethan had a mistress outside. He had spoiled her to the extreme. Chapter 2. After causing a scene, the actress Hannah left unscathed. The room fell into dead silence. My editor's face was grim. Ethan seemed not to notice. After a few words of concern, he left, citing business matters. We've been preparing for this book signing event for 6 months, and now it's just over? As soon as Ethan left, the room erupted. Sandra looked at me, her eyes filled with unwillingness. I closed my eyes and said softly, "Call the police." If Ethan wouldn't handle it, I would do it myself. But before I could make the call, Ethan's people stopped me. A chill spread through my chest. So, Ethan has decided to suppress this matter? Ethan's phone remained unanswered. He didn't come home even by nightfall. Before bed, he suddenly sent me a location. "I'm drunk. Natalie, can you come pick me up? Let's talk about what happened during the day." I stared at the message for 2 seconds, thinking about the incident with the police, and reluctantly got up to go find him. When I reached the entrance of the club, just as I was about to push the door open, I suddenly heard a crisp female voice coming from the slightly ajar door. "I don't want this gift. I want the necklace that Natalie likes the most. Will you give it to me or not?" Her tone was spoiled yet adorable. I froze on the spot. It was Hannah's voice. Under the dim light, I saw a bunch of people inside, the same ones Ethan usually hung out with. Hannah was nestled in Ethan's arms, even leaning in to kiss him. "I just like that one. If you don't give it to me, I'll make a scene." Ethan didn't dodge. He looked down at her. "Didn't you cause enough trouble today? Well, isn't there someone to clean up my mess?" "Ugh, I can't even look." Someone mocked. "Ethan, you're so partial to the big star. What will you do if Natalie finds out?" Ethan lit a cigarette, and through the swirling smoke, I seemed to see him smile. I do like Natalie, but it's been 6 years. Facing the same face every day gets boring. Sometimes, you need to change things up. Besides, even if she finds out, it doesn't matter. Ethan leaned back, the smile not reaching his eyes. Natalie has been married twice, and she's not young anymore. Honestly, who would want her if she left me? Hannah giggled. Indeed, who would be interested in an old woman? So dirty. After speaking, she suddenly tilted her head towards the door and caught my gaze. Her eyes were full of laughter. I instantly understood. That message was sent from Ethan's phone by Hannah. She had deliberately lured me here to witness this scene. I clutched my wrist, feeling my fingers tremble uncontrollably. The nausea kept rising in waves. That night, Ethan didn't come home. Actually, if I had been a bit more observant lately, I should have noticed something was off. I just trusted Ethan too much. I didn't believe the rumors. I believed in my own judgment, believed that I wouldn't misjudge a person. But people change. In the middle of the night, Ethan's call came through. As soon as I answered, the sound of intimate kissing echoed in the silent night. Hannah's muffled voice came through the phone. Aren't I more fun than Natalie? You think, The rest of her sentence was cut off by a kiss, the sound of their entanglement hitting my eardrums like a drum. I hung up abruptly, ran to the bathroom and vomited until I was dizzy. Outside, the rain poured down. I didn't sleep all night. I searched the entire villa and found the bracelet I had put away 6 years ago that could connect me to the system. I asked, if I regret it now, can I still leave? The system responded coldly. It said, absolutely. I could leave this world with my rewards at any time. Leave Ethan. Chapter 3. Ethan came back in the morning. When he saw me on the sofa, he looked a bit surprised. Why do you look so pale? Caught a cold? He instinctively leaned closer, placing his hand on my forehead. He played his part well. He didn't seem much different from 6 years ago. Gentle and considerate. Where were you last night? Ethan gently rubbed my head. There was something at the company. How about I make some porridge for you? I've always had a frail constitution and would catch colds frequently. Back then, no matter how busy Ethan was, he would always rush back to take care of me. He said I was more important than anything. As Ethan leaned closer, I noticed faint red marks on his neck, signs of last night's passion. A wave of nausea surged up abruptly. All the emotions I had bottled up the night before came crashing down, almost drowning me. I had heard the rumors about the mistress. At the time, I confidently told Sandra, Ethan loves me too much to do something like that. But reality had just driven a knife into my heart. I looked at Ethan, feeling my vision blur bit by bit. So the rumors are true. Perhaps I said it too suddenly. Ethan visibly stiffened. I looked at him, and suddenly a tear splashed down onto the back of my hand. Is it fun, treating me like a fool? He looked at me, his smile frozen on his face. What nonsense are you talking about? I saw it all last night at the club. You and Hannah, and the things you said. As the words fell, the atmosphere suddenly grew tense. The living room plunged into a suffocating silence. I quietly stared at Ethan. 6 years, over 2,000 days and nights. I wasn't willing to let it go. Even if I had to leave this world, I still wanted an explanation from Ethan. But Ethan only looked shocked for a second before quickly recovering. He stopped smiling, his tone carrying a coldness I hadn't heard in 6 years. So, you saw everything. I thought that by revealing the truth, Ethan would be panicked, guilty, and would try to lie with some excuse. But I didn't expect him to admit it so nonchalantly. Natalie, why? He lowered his eyes, gently tidying my hair, his actions tender, but his tone held a hint of irritation. Why didn't you say anything last night, but now you bring it up today? Wouldn't it be better to keep pretending? We could still have the same relationship as before. I can give you everything you want, and you can continue to be Mrs. Jiang, envied by everyone. Why disrupt this peace? My throat felt like it was blocked by something, choking me until my eyes turned red. So, we've been married for 6 years, and now you can't even give me an explanation? Ethan glanced at me, Sometimes a man's feelings can detach quickly. One moment he's professing his love with deep emotion, and the next, he's stabbing you in the back without a second thought. There's nothing to explain, Ethan said flatly. Natalie, you're older than me, and you're not young anymore, and you made a scene with Justin that everyone knows about. Without me, do you really think you have a better option? Chapter 4. Ethan's words pierced my heart like needles. When I first arrived in this world, I was already married to Justin. That journey of trying to win his love, which started with marriage, lasted 3 years. To complete the task and return home, I did everything I could, even abandoning my dignity, but Justin always despised me. And in the end, I failed. What I didn't realize was that Ethan had always been bothered by this. Back then, he would hold me in his arms, soothing me over and over again, saying, "It's okay, Natalie. It's all in the past." His words were so sincere. In my original world, I was an orphan with no one to care for me. I had always been alone. Now, someone was willing to love me unconditionally, and it would be a lie to say I wasn't moved. I believed him. When the system switched my target to Ethan, I thought it was fate. The system told me that once a target was conquered, the one being conquered would also receive a notification. When I chose to stay with Ethan, he teared up, softly promising that he would never let me go through anything like that again. But a man's promises only hold weight in the moment they are spoken. Ethan broke his promise. Now, Ethan sat casually on the sofa and spoke. Now that you can't return to your previous world, here, you only have me. Pretending not to know is the most dignified way to handle this, isn't it? My eyes stung with tears. I looked up at Ethan and laughed, tears streaming down my face. You're so sure I won't leave you? Yes. Ethan didn't panic or rush to wipe away my tears as he used to. He remained calm, sitting there with a confident tone. You can't leave me. My heart froze completely at those words. In fact, I had never told Ethan. Once the task was over, I could leave any time. I looked at Ethan. Suddenly, I wanted to know, if Ethan knew this, how would he react? Chapter 5. Ethan suddenly became very busy. He was busy taking Hannah on Ferris wheel rides, busy celebrating her birthday. He even promised to buy her the necklace I loved. Hannah loved to send me messages about these things, with every word filled with boastfulness. Natalie, I'm sorry, but you might not get the necklace you wanted at tomorrow's auction. Ethan insisted on giving it to me. Sandra was furious, cursing. Ethan must be crazy. How many of your things has Hannah taken from you lately? And now she wants to take this too? Ever since Sandra found out about Ethan and Hannah, she's been dying to curse Ethan out as a bastard every day. Yeah, I murmured as I stared at the screen. Ethan really is a bastard. Ethan used to treat me the same way he now treats Hannah. Back then, I felt fortunate for his favoritism for many years. I once told Ethan, if you ever stop treating me well, I'll disappear from your world forever. Back then, I never imagined that day would come so soon. I wiped away my tears and let out a light laugh. If she wants it that badly, let her have it. I don't want it anymore. It's okay. Once the book signing event is over, I can completely leave this world. I've been busy with this for a long time, and I don't want it to end without a proper conclusion. Thankfully, this book signing event was a great success, which means I'll be able to leave soon. On the final day, I said a proper goodbye to Sandra. I told her that I would probably be leaving here, and possibly never coming back. I stood on the overpass, looking up. The sunset was beautiful. I didn't know how long I had been staring, not until the cold night breeze crept into my thin sweater, and the sunset had completely faded. Did I move my stiff fingers and look away? I turned around and slowly began to walk back. Suddenly, a tall figure blocked my path. It was Justin, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. He still had the same indifferent expression as before. Instinctively, I stepped to the left to avoid him and kept walking forward. But as we brushed past each other, I heard him say, "Is this the man you chose?" I froze for a second, didn't respond, and continued walking, but he grabbed my wrist. "Natalie, I don't like you, but I am still your ex-husband. If you need anything, you can come to me." I shook off his hand, polite yet distant. No need. Thank you. Chapter 6. When I got home, the living room was still shrouded in darkness. Ethan hadn't been back for days. He was right. He didn't care whether I knew or not. He was certain that I had nowhere else to go if I left him. It was probably the last night. I indulged in a lot of alcohol, and in my drunken stupor, Ethan, who hadn't contacted me in a long time, unexpectedly called. Natalie, you met with Justin behind my back? I don't know if it was because I was too drunk, but I could hear a clear note of jealousy in his questioning tone. I felt a bit dazed as if he still loved me, but Hannah's face immediately floated into my mind, reminding me that this relationship could never go back to what it was. I closed my eyes and asked him somewhat mockingly, "You can keep a mistress outside, but I can't meet my ex-husband?" Ethan fell silent on the other end of the line. After a long pause, he hung up. Hannah sent a picture shortly after. Lately, Hannah had been sending me photos of her and Ethan together. All sorts of them, all of them featuring Ethan, his downcast eyes, serious and handsome. Hannah laughed as she texted, "Borrowing your husband for a bit. Hee hee." With Ethan, Hannah seemed to have found a solid backer. I didn't reply and instead took screenshots of all the conversations we had recently. Then I posted them on Weibo. Since she wanted to disgust me, no one should have it easy. Chapter 7. After posting, I fell asleep on the sofa for a long time. Even though I told myself I didn't care, I still dreamt of the past. On my birthday, fireworks lit up the entire city. The candle flames flickered. Ethan's soft blessings echoed in my ears. He sincerely said that his Natalie should always be happy. I had never felt such passionate love before, and I cried like a baby. Ethan looked at me and laughed, calling me a crybaby, but the next second, he reached out to wipe away my tears and held me in his arms. He sang me a birthday song, loudly and out of tune. The memories from those days flashed through my mind like a montage. When it ended, I woke up abruptly to find my face wet with tears. The emotions in the dream didn't lie. I was indeed sad. The living room was still dark, shrouded in gloom. In the silence, I sat up, suddenly realizing that someone was sitting beside the sofa. Hearing the movement, he looked up and met my gaze. "Why are you crying?" His tone was concerned, just like Ethan in the dream. I froze on the spot. Maybe it was the alcohol. I couldn't tell if this was a dream or reality. I looked up at him, feeling all the grievances from the past few days rushing up uncontrollably. I cried and asked him why he had to bully me with Hannah. Why did he treat me like a fool? Ethan's warm fingertips brushed the corner of my eye, and he asked me, "Are you very sad?" My heart skipped a beat. Before I could reply, Ethan suddenly let out a cold laugh and gripped my chin tightly. After posting all that on Weibo, causing such a huge impact on the company, and ruining the deal Hannah just secured, "You should be happy, so why are you crying?" His words yanked me back to reality. My eyelashes fluttered. I came to my senses. So this was it. Ethan had come to confront me on behalf of Hannah. The Weibo post hadn't been up for long before it caused a stir and quickly trended. Many people started digging into the situation. Hannah was terrified. She was scared that her reputation in the industry would be damaged. So she cried to Ethan for help. Ethan stared at me, his expression cold. "Delete the Weibo post." I stared back at Ethan, laughing until my nose tingled and tears began to fall uncontrollably. "So, you knew about the photos Hannah sent me. You knew she was doing this to disgust me. And you knew all along." "Ethan, what do you take me for?" "I just found out," he said impatiently, frowning. "I'm only playing around with her. Don't be unreasonable." I looked at him in silence. Ethan seemed to want to say more, but his phone buzzed. It was Hannah's voice. Her coquettish complaint echoed in the room. "Ethan, I really miss you. Hurry up and take care of that Weibo post and come be with me, okay?" "Wah." Ethan's frown instinctively relaxed. He typed something on his phone and then looked up at me again, the displeasure reappearing in his eyes. But he softened his tone. "Natalie, there's no need to take it this far. Hannah won't threaten your position as Mrs. Jiang." Even though I was the one who had been married to him for 6 years, he called another woman by her nickname so affectionately. At that moment, my love for him completely evaporated. I slowly stood up and looked at him. What if I say I won't delete it? You don't have the right to refuse, Ethan said coldly. He looked down at me, repeating, delete it. Don't make me say it a third time. With that, he turned to leave and go to Hannah. But then he paused and looked back at me. And don't meet with Justin again, whether I see him or not is my choice. Ethan's voice turned icy. Don't push me into making things ugly. Stick to your role as Mrs. Jiang. The Ethan standing before me was so hypocritical that I couldn't see any trace of the man he used to be. All I felt was a wave of nausea. Suddenly, I didn't want to stay here for another moment. I asked Ethan, do you remember? I told you that if you ever crossed me, I would disappear from your world forever. Ethan scoffed indifferently. What? You're going to return to your world and be an orphan? I pressed my pale lips together and forced a smile. Ethan, I don't want to play the loving couple with you anymore. I'm going back to my original world. Ethan was completely exasperated. Are you still playing this game? When will it end? Natalie, do you think I don't know? You can't go back. And now you only have me. What good will it do you to make me angry? Or are you trying to use this as a... Before Ethan could finish, the bracelet on my wrist suddenly lit up with a red glow, casting a light across his face. The system had been activated by me. Ethan's words caught in his throat as he looked at me, bewildered for a second. His face turned deathly pale. I looked at Ethan, smiling as I spoke. System, take me out of this world. Chapter 8. As soon as I finished speaking, the world spun violently around me. My vision began to blur. I felt dizzy and couldn't stand upright, suddenly collapsing straight to the ground. Just moments before, Ethan had been irritated, but now he reached out hastily to catch me. However, halfway through, he pulled his arm back. He stuffed one hand in his pocket, letting me fall to the ground. Natalie, this trick might fool a child, but it won't work on me. I'll give you 3 seconds to get up. 3, 2. His countdown abruptly stopped, his face turning pale as he watched blood spill from my mouth. In that moment, he finally believed it. Leaving this world wasn't just some trick I was playing on him. Natalie! He finally panicked, rushing over to grab my hand, stumbling over his words. What do you mean, leave? Weren't you just saying that to get me back? His eyes, which had been filled with irritation and frustration moments ago, were now full of fear. Just a moment ago, he had been angry with me over Hannah, but now he looked as if he was terrified of losing me. I found it amusing and couldn't help but laugh. I tried to pry his fingers off, but I had no strength left. I could only look at him and smile as the blood stained the white shirt on my chest. I said, Ethan, your acting is really awful. Hannah likes something these days, and you rushed to take it from me to give it to her. You knew how long I had been preparing for the book signing, but you let her ruin it as a joke. You also knew how long I had been waiting for that necklace, but you were sure I couldn't leave you. So you humiliated me to make her happy. Everyone around you knew about Hannah, but I was kept in the dark. Did she laugh at me like a fool when she was with you? Stop it. Ethan interrupted me, his voice rough with anger, his eyes red. Stop it. I took a deep breath. She deliberately disgusted me, and you rushed over in the middle of the night to scold me when I posted on Weibo. Ethan gritted his teeth as he looked at me. Yes, I was out of my mind during this time, and I went too far, but I never thought you would leave. I didn't know about the book signing. I didn't give that necklace to Hannah. She was just pretending. Even if the Weibo thing hadn't happened, I was planning to come and give you a surprise today. He fumbled out a box from somewhere, opened it, and there it was, the necklace I had wanted for so long. It was beautiful, the one I had loved for so long. Ethan's voice grew hoarse. I was just playing around with her as something new, but I never forgot that it was you who had been with me for 6 years. Yes, you didn't forget, but you took my presence for granted and used it as a way to mistreat me. I used all my strength to grab the necklace and tried to throw it far away. But I don't want it anymore. Ethan, I don't want the necklace. And I don't want you. I won't allow it. Ethan gritted his teeth as he lifted me up. It might have been my imagination, but I felt his fingers trembling. Natalie, I won't let you leave. Ethan rushed me to the hospital, He called in the best specialists overnight. I lay on the hospital bed, watching him frantically running up and down. But no one could do anything. They could only watch as the signs of my life inexplicably faded away. I would occasionally cough up blood, but it didn't hurt. I just felt dizzy and weak. I asked the system, why not just leave directly? The system said I had stayed in this world too long, to completely erase my presence. The process would be slower. Erase completely. So, will everyone forget me? No, but everything related to the host will disappear along with you. Including your body in this world. I closed my eyes and nodded slightly. That would be for the best. Chapter 9. The sky was gloomy. It seemed like a heavy rain was coming. The first time I met Ethan, it also rained heavily. Back then, I was chasing after Justin, but Justin always ignored me. One day, he left me in the pouring rain again, and Ethan, unable to stand it, yanked me under his umbrella with a stern face. Getting soaked in the rain will make you sick. There are other men out there besides him. Why do you keep humiliating yourself by sticking to him? Anyway, you two have no feelings for each other, so you might as well get a divorce. After that, Ethan often showed up around me, half jokingly, half seriously urging me to get a divorce. Leave him, and you can choose someone better. Like me, haven't you thought about it? Later on, he confronted Justin face to face. Justin threw out a do as you please before walking away without looking back. At that moment, I knew I was unlikely to succeed. The day I divorced Justin, after failing in my mission, I was devastated, even ready to be erased. But Ethan made a grand gesture, proposing to me right outside the Civil Affairs Bureau. There was no trace of his usual playful demeanor in his eyes. He said he was serious. I stood there, stunned. After the original target disappeared, Ethan's name replaced it. The system said that because of Ethan's influence, the target of the mission had changed. It was supposed to be a mission, but Ethan was the one who approached me on his own. This self-conquest was completed perfectly. Ethan wasn't joking. On our wedding day, Ethan gently held me in his arms. I could feel an unprecedented tension in him. I pushed him away, my voice hoarse, but I knew very well what the rumors were saying. I know. When he mentioned it, Ethan's voice cracked with pain. I don't care what others say, and I don't care about the past. None of that matters to me. It's my fault for coming into your life too late, which is why you had to go through all those difficult things. Back then, it seemed like Ethan truly loved me enough to move the system. Chapter 10. I wanted to sleep. Really sleep. Ideally, I'd wake up and find that I had returned home, but Ethan was gripping my wrist like a madman. He wouldn't let me sleep. Natalie, what gives you the right to decide to leave on your own? It was I who saved you from the system. Without my permission, you're not allowed to leave. He grabbed the bracelet on my wrist, repeatedly giving the command to cancel the departure. But the system wouldn't listen to him. He couldn't keep me here. Sandra was the first to get the news. When she arrived at the hospital, she stood at the door, looking at me, her eyes red with tears. Even if Ethan is a bastard and did wrong, why did you choose this way? You said you were leaving here. I thought you meant just leaving, but I never imagined you didn't want to live anymore. As she spoke, her voice grew hoarse until she could barely speak. I didn't expect things to escalate this far. I tried to explain repeatedly that it wasn't that I didn't want to live, but that I was returning to my original world. I don't know if Sandra believed me, but she stayed by my side, refusing to leave. This card, it was the one you secretly slipped to me the day you said goodbye, wasn't it? You planned on leaving long ago, didn't you? Natalie, you're just as much of a jerk. Suddenly, I found myself tearing up. I had thought about staying in this world forever. I'm an orphan. Even if I returned to my original world, I'd still be alone. But here, at least there was someone like Sandra who genuinely cared about me. If I divorced Ethan, I could still be myself. The sadness would eventually fade away. But when I brought the divorce papers to Ethan, he stared at me and laughed coldly. Are you really sure about this? Without me, who else in this city would want you? I was so angry that I started to shake. I raised my hand and slapped Ethan. Ethan, I am a person, not a possession. I can live just fine without anyone. I hit him so hard that my fingers tingled. Ethan grabbed my wrist, suddenly furious, forcing me to look at him. Natalie, do you really want to leave me that badly? Yes. Even half a second with you makes me feel sick. Ethan stared at me, then laughed. Fine. If you don't care. If it means nothing to you. What about Sandra? I tensed up immediately. What do you mean? Sandra didn't get this far easily. If you leave, can she keep the job she's worked so hard for all these years? You should know. It's not difficult for me to make that happen. I closed my eyes, suddenly at a loss for words. I at least have an escape route. But Sandra doesn't. She fought so hard to get where she is now. She shouldn't be innocently dragged down by my issues. Ethan handed the divorce papers back to me. He softly said, I told you. You can't leave me. I tore up the divorce papers right in front of Ethan. I wasn't going to divorce him, and I didn't want to stay in this world anymore. Chapter 11. I could feel my breathing becoming weaker. On the way to the hospital, I was still blaming the system for being so slow in the process of detachment, but when Sandra held my hand and cried as if I were really about to die, I suddenly felt a bit reluctant. Ethan stumbled into the room. All the doctors shook their heads at him. He looked at me, and there was no trace of the disgust that had been there these past few weeks. Natalie, what do I do? What should I do? He clutched my hand, his voice choking. Natalie, don't do this to me. He was heartbroken, as if he really loved me. I sniffed and smiled at Sandra. Look at him. Doesn't he look convincing when he acts? Convincing enough that I believed it for so many years. But I knew. This was just an emotional reaction. His inability to accept what was happening. There was one thing he wasn't wrong about. He never thought I could leave. So sure of his victory, I chose to detach right in front of him. If I really stayed, would Ethan still be like this? He wouldn't. Sandra swung her bag at him, hitting and cursing. Get out! Get out! Don't dirty Natalie's hands. When you were with Hannah, did you ever consider Natalie's feelings? When Hannah kept sending photos to provoke her, did you think about Natalie's feelings? Now that Hannah's scandal is exposed, you should be by her side, comforting her with sweet words. What are you doing here? Pretending to be heartbroken? Sandra hated Ethan to the core. Ethan ignored her. He bowed his head, and his tears fell onto my wrist. Do you really have to be so cruel? Ethan gritted his teeth and asked me, Natalie, can you really bear this? I wanted to say something more, but suddenly, I lost all my strength. I think I'm really going to say goodbye to this world, and that's okay. I left all my savings to Sandra. Even if Ethan continued to trouble her, it would be enough for her to live on, but without me, Ethan probably wouldn't bother her anymore. However, there was one last thing I didn't tell Ethan. I knew a man's guilt only lasts for a while. Over time, Ethan would go on living his carefree life. So I used half of my reward. I changed his and Hannah's ending. I want them to suffer every hardship but live a long life. Chapter 12. The hospital was noisy, but in Ethan's world, it suddenly felt like all sound had disappeared. He clung tightly to Natalie's hand, but it seemed like no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't hold on. He said a lot of things, but Natalie, from start to finish, didn't give him a single glance. Sandra's desperate cries mixed with the thunder outside. Natalie had completely detached from this world. Ethan's face turned deathly pale. Sandra broke down in tears, throwing anything she could get her hands on at Ethan. Ethan couldn't say a word. He stood there in silence for a long time, shaking his head in denial. He couldn't believe that Natalie had just left so easily. Chapter 13. Ethan brought Natalie back home. He kept muttering, "It can't be. There must be a way. There has to be a way." He wanted to check the bracelet on Natalie's wrist, but suddenly he noticed that the bracelet was beginning to turn transparent. Ethan froze. He realized that it wasn't just the bracelet. Natalie herself was starting to become transparent, gradually disappearing. At that moment, he suddenly understood what Natalie had said to him before. Natalie had said that if he didn't treat her well, she would disappear from this world entirely. Disappear completely. Ethan's hand hung in the air, unable to say another word. He desperately tried to remember, but he couldn't recall how he felt back then. He only remembered making a promise. He told Natalie that day would never come. He said he loved Natalie, but gradually, his love seemed to fade over time. He began to feel that Natalie wasn't as attractive as he once thought. He started to find her uninteresting, started to feel that Natalie was no different from anyone else. It was then that people began to sow discord, bringing up Natalie's past with Justin. In the past, whenever anyone tried to say something like that, Ethan would turn on them without hesitation. He would kick over tables and threaten them. Natalie is my wife, and anyone who dares to bring up her past to upset her will have to deal with me. But now, thinking back, he suddenly couldn't say those words. He felt bitter about how Natalie had once clung to Justin, feeling a deep sense of imbalance. That's when Hannah appeared. Once, twice. Ethan's responses were indifferent, but he never outright rejected her. Eventually, Hannah started appearing more and more frequently. He knew exactly what Hannah was after, but he didn't push her away. He thought Hannah was right. Natalie was no longer the young girl she once was. Apart from him, what better choice did she have? And then, things naturally progressed. The more Ethan thought back, the more he realized how absurd he had been during that time. He suddenly slapped himself hard. When he came to his senses, Natalie was almost completely gone. No, don't leave. I didn't give you permission. Ethan frantically tried to hold Natalie in his arms, but the system's erasure had already begun. This body wouldn't remain. No matter how tightly Ethan held on, he could only watch helplessly as the person in his arms disappeared before his eyes, bit by bit, until she was completely gone. Chapter 14. Ethan hadn't left the house in days. After Natalie completely disappeared from this world, everything related to her began to vanish from Ethan's sight as well. It was as if the traces of her existence were being erased. The room suddenly felt empty, so quiet that even the sound of breathing could be heard clearly. The moonlight was thin, and Ethan clutched his head, unable to bear it. He wanted to cast aside these memories, but in the dead of night, they clung to him like inescapable ghosts. They invaded his dreams over and over again, constantly reminding him that he had brought this upon himself. Hannah called again. Ethan! Ethan! Help me! I've worked so hard to get to where I am today. I don't want it all ruined by one Weibo post. Lately, the flood of online comments had made her too scared even to check her phone. For every person who had once supported Ethan and Natalie, there were just as many now cursing her for knowing she was the other woman and still going through with it, calling her shameless. Hannah was both aggrieved and furious. She blamed Natalie for exposing everything, blamed Ethan for not stepping in immediately to control the situation. She cried bitterly, feeling as though the whole world was against her. Ethan held the phone, finding Hannah's voice unbearably annoying. It grated on his nerves, which had just barely calmed, making him feel extremely irritated once again. He nodded and replied, "All right, I'll help you." Hannah was overjoyed, nodding eagerly, but she didn't expect that what awaited her was neither clarification nor salvation. She stared in shock at Ethan's account, where photo after incriminating photo was posted, her heart sinking into ice. Ethan, for reasons she couldn't understand, suddenly exposed everything. Ethan, are you crazy? You said you'd help me. What are you doing? But Ethan's phone went dead. Ethan had vanished. Chapter 15. Sandra's work was going smoothly. As the end of the year approached, she found herself increasingly busy. When she finally looked up from her work to gaze out the window, Sandra noticed that it had started snowing. A thin layer of snow had already covered the ground. Sandra felt a bit dazed. It seemed surreal that Natalie had been gone for so long. After she left, many things happened. Hannah was banned from the entire internet due to her poor behavior. Ethan also fell gravely ill. Sandra felt a pang of regret. Why didn't Ethan just die from his illness? But Ethan didn't die. He had a long life ahead of him. The next time Sandra saw Ethan, she had just gotten off work. Seeing Ethan from a distance, Sandra felt her mood sour instantly. What made it worse was that Ethan seemed to have recovered quite a bit. He appeared to be slowly emerging from the shadow of Natalie's departure. Sandra felt it was a shame for Natalie, but she also knew that for most men, It's unrealistic to think they would be heartbroken for life over a woman's departure. Just as Sandra finished that thought, a loud screech of brakes rang out. This was followed by a horrified scream. Sandra looked up. She saw Ethan, who had seemed in good spirits just moments before, being hit and thrown by a suddenly swerving car driven by a drunk driver. Sandra? Afraid she might be mistaken, Sandra walked closer to confirm. She saw Ethan lying on the ground, pale and in too much pain to speak. The suddenness of the event left Sandra stunned. But once she processed what had happened, Sandra's mood lifted completely. Ethan didn't die, but his leg was broken. When Sandra visited the hospital to offer some sarcastic remarks, she also ran into an old acquaintance, Hannah. Apparently, Hannah had fallen into a sewer after stepping on an uneven patch of ground. Sandra didn't know what to say for a moment. It seemed like all the good things had happened at once recently, but she didn't know that even better things were yet to come. Every time the two of them started to get their lives back on track, another unexpected accident would occur. Yet somehow, both of them had incredible resilience. They always managed to survive, only to encounter even more heart-wrenching accidents. Sandra suddenly felt like life had given her something to look forward to. Every time she went to the hospital to make sarcastic comments, it felt as satisfying as clocking out of work at the end of the day. Chapter 16. Another spring arrived. Sandra found herself missing Natalie. She looked up at the sky, vaguely recalling the dream she had last night. In the dream, she saw that Natalie was doing well in her own world. The harsh winter had passed. Spring is in full bloom.